Hello, everybody. Welcome to Two Old White Men with Mike Donahue and
Steve Hayes. Thanks for
Stevo
joining us
Hayes.
today. Hey, man.
So, Steve, when we got on the camera, you asked what happened to your eye. So, just
Yeah,
full disclosure here. Yeah, I got smacked. I'd love to tell you it was a hockey story. It sounds so cool right
that's
now.
the first question I asked. That sounded good. Hey, was it hockey? No.
I wish.
Why is it
No,
never? You can get killed on a hockey board. You playing football, whatever. Don't show a scratch, and you trip and fall on the curb or something, and all of a sudden you get a big old black
yeah,
eye.
it wasn't quite as clumsy as that, but this is the culprit right here. Little
That's
crowbar.
nasty.
Hit me in the face. I was prying up a piece of wood. You know how they put wood down for the carpet to lay
Hmm.
down, the carpet, and it's got
Yeah.
those little nails sticking out. So I was trying to get that out because we were redoing the floors, and I was pulling on it. It was a nail, and I was pulling on it, and went bam, hit me right in the eye. Had to go to the emergency room. They had to put some dye in there and see if it was scratched. It was scratched, so now they get me on drops. But so yeah, little kind
Dude,
of a
it's
tough day
amazing that we're
yesterday.
two old white men that we haven't died sooner. I mean, any old white dude should forget. It's just amazing that we even survive as long as we live. The way we
That's the
live and the
truth.
things that we do and the risks that we take, but it's different, man. Being a man, it's a different thing, and not everybody is like everybody else for sure. But man, I don't know, Mike. It's
No,
only
but
by
there's
the
probably women that could have done that job way better than me yesterday,
right,
and so
including
it's not a
including our
gender issue,
wives.
it's a yeah, it's kind of a clumsy issue. It's like, "Ooh, put your eye on," like, I couldn't, I should've just, basically looked at the piece of what I was doing. I really wasn't looking, and I was just, I was kinda half-assing it, and so,
Yeah,
you get what you deserve, so but I'm alright. It's good. The guy said it just is a bruise in the eye. It'll end up being better
dude, it looks
eventually. I just gotta put
intense.
the drops in and make sure it's protected, but yeah, it's kind of a crazy day. So, how you doing, Steve-O Steve?
I'm doing all right. Doing all right.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
My eye's
weather's
doing better than yours, I guess.
what's the weather like up there in Seattle?
It's gray and, it's gray and gloomy today. That's what spring does though, man. Spring messes with you. Mother Nature, she's a you know what? I mean, she teases you. But when I used to live in the Midwest, it was like I swore that Mother Nature waited till everybody in the state of Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa, Kansas, wherever I was, right? Especially the snowy ones. It waited till the last person said, "Okay, we're done with the snow," and then it would dump one more time. Even if it was May, it would dump on us just to
Yeah,
break our backs.
yep.
That's kinda what I feel it is. I mean, we had an incredible week last week, temperature-wise. I just got back, like I talked about last episode, in Texas, and drove all the way up from Texas to Oregon, and it was gorgeous, but then guess what? I mean, it's messing with us again. Did you have nice weather last week?
Yeah, we had really good weather. It got a little cold one day, but then, like, today's 70, so I live in
Oh, that's
Nebraska, so
nice.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
And I
not
was up
here.
actually, I was doing schools last week up in the Panhandle. They call it the Panhandle in Nebraska, in the west, and it was, 70s. It was nice. I walked in with
How
a
did those go? You got a
t-shirt.
good story of one of your school assemblies? That's gotta be fun to go into schools, an old man like yourself, and
Well,
talk to
it's
these
funny
teachers and
that
listen
you
to you.
say that because I do. I'm an older guy. I look a little younger, but not that much younger. I mean, I look like I'm old. So you can tell, like, when you walk in, the kids are like, "Who's this old guy going to tell me how to live my life?" But
Right.
10 minutes into the deal, like, it flips because they take their AirPods out, they start listening because I've always said this about communication, that if you say things to whoever you're talking to, if you say something that matters to that person, then they're gonna listen to you. It doesn't matter the style, how old you are, whatever you are. You can even be young and say stuff that's gonna bore the cheese out of them, and they're gonna shut you down. I mean, they'll give you a couple minutes at the beginning
Yeah.
because you're cute and you're young, whatever. But when, after a couple minutes, when you just saying the same old stuff, they just shut you down. So I've learned that it's the content, and it's how you say it. If you're uh, saying it in a way that's respectful, makes sense, they'll
Right.
listen. So
Right, and I think that's
yeah,
shocking to them sometimes too, because I think when I was a kid, I thought the older generation had no clue, and then someone would surprise me, and then you get older and you're like, they had all sorts of clue, and I mean, at my age right now, you mentioned, they listen to you. At my age, I mean, I wanna be heard. I mean, that's one reason why we're doing this podcast. I mean, when you get older, you have all this wisdom, you have all this knowledge, you have all these crowbar in the eye stories, right? And you want to be heard, and when you get older, and I think it's important for every generation to listen to the generation that came before them, because there's a lot of crowbar incidences we might be able to avoid.
So I'm gonna show you this video. So, at one of the schools the other day, some girl grabbed my phone, took it, and then I got it back,
I
and this is
saw that
what.
on your social media. You posted
Yeah,
that, didn't you?
yeah. So I'll put it on here.
We couldn't really hear it, but I liked how the one girl said something about how you were, what's the word she used? Lame or something like that, and then she said later on, "I'll give you a billion out of 10," like,
No, "He traumatized us."
yeah.
No, it's really cool being able to say stuff that matters, but that's not why we're here today. So, Steve, I have some questions for you. I made a mistake when we first did the first podcast we did. I said you raised 4 boys. I gave you an extra boy there, so it's actually 3 boys, and I've raised 3 girls and a boy, and, actually, I have some good news. I'm a grandpa.
Right
My
on.
Yeah, my daughter Riley just had a baby. Her and her husband Jackson, they live out in South Carolina. They just had a baby. They don't want it, so it's their preference, but they don't want pictures of the baby posted online yet or any of the Facebook stuff. They just one of the so their prerogative. So I sketched out like what the baby looks like. So
Wow, she's adorable.
isn't she cute? Looks just like me,
She's so
doesn't she?
cute.
Skinny like me? Yeah. So that's my granddaughter, Mira. So
This is your first one too, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
What was that like? What is that like? Is it surreal? Has it hit you yet, or
Are you a grandfather? You're not,
no,
are
I'm
you?
not. Mm-mm.
No, it's so really weird. I mean, obviously, when I see her live, I'm gonna go out there in a couple of weeks out to, South Carolina and see her, end of the month, but when I'm sure it's gonna be crazy. The pictures they sent me of her, they actually really do look like Riley when she was born, because Riley was born with a full head of hair, and so is this little monkey, and so, um, yeah, it's weird because I don't feel like a grandfather. I'm old enough to be I've been old enough to be a grandfather for a long time, but it just didn't happen. So, but yeah, it's awesome. I mean, I wish we lived closer, and
Yeah.
I'll get out there 2, 3 times a year, probably as much as I can. But yeah, I mean, it's gonna be. I can't wait. I can't wait to see her. And my daughter is a trooper, and she did really good, and baby's healthy, and everything's good. So I'm excited about it.
Yeah, that's my thing too, is like, I think I heard it's great. I mean, I tried to have grandkids first. I heard that was way better to have grandkids than kids, but I couldn't figure out how to do that. But I don't know if I'm ready to be called a grandpa yet. I just don't know, man.
Yeah. So
What's your
what was it
question?
like? So you raised 3 boys.
Yep.
What was it like, as a dad raising boys?
Man, I have a friend that said this once, to me, and it made so much sense. He said, nobody's ready to have kids. I mean, I have one friend who told me the other day, tried to tell me that he was ready to have kids. I'm like, I call BS on that one. I'm not sure he was. But my friend said this. He said, when you have kids, we're just kids having kids. I mean, when we have kids, we're still a kid in our head. I mean, we're still, we see ourselves as young. We're not ready for that child to come out. And man, I remember it was a scary thing for me. And we went to marriage counseling, premarital counseling, which I highly recommend. And the guy started asking us questions. He asked my wife, he says, "How many kids do you want to have?" And she said, she just thought 4. Well, her family had 4 kids, right? And then he asked me, and I'm like, I had no clue. I never even thought about that. Kids. I don't want to have kids. But she answered so confidently. I thought I better answer confidently. So I said 3, because that's how many I had. But then it was done, right? And about 5 years into our marriage, my wife comes to me and says, if we're gonna have kids, we're gonna have 4 kids. We probably should have one now. And I'm like, babe, are you sure? Are you su-" I wasn't ready, Mike. It scared me. It scared me to have a
Yeah.
kid. And luckily, I had my in laws were right there. I love the village of people around you. On the other hand, when Micah was born, my youngest was born, my wife told me she'd been waiting all weekend to tell me she was waiting until I was in the right zone to tell me, and she told me, and it shocked me, Mike. I was like, I was like that. I didn't know what to say. So I said, "I gotta go pick up Jordan from school." Well, I didn't have to pick him up for another hour or 2 yet, but I pointed out to you that gas station in Seattle where I stopped, and I just
I
stared
remember
at the
that.
gas station wall,
Yeah.
and I remember saying, I can't give that to my wife. I gotta face I got" so I just sat there and I processed it, and then I started to get excited about it, and I couldn't imagine life without any of my 3 sons. It was scary, but boy, it was pretty cool. How about you?
So I had 4, and oldest is a son, and then 3 girls came after that, and then I have a stepdaughter. So I have 4 daughters that I raised, and actually, my stepdaughter the other day said something to me kinda cool. She's back from Dubai. She went to Dubai for a year and a half, or Turkey, Madrid, and then Dubai, and then now she's back, and, she came back in December before all the mess that's happened over there, so that's good, but, um she just said to me this the other day, she said, "You know, you're like my dad." She goes, and her dad's a good guy, and they got a good relationship, but she said, "You know, you pretty much raised me," and so I don't know, I think, you know, the difference between I don't know, the difference between raising a lot of guys, a lot of girls is probably, is worth talking about, but my daughters were real clean and never had to really get on them about their rooms and stuff. My daughter Riley a little bit, but most of the time they were pretty organized, and where my son, it was like, "Oh my god," like you walk into his room and it's like a tornado, you know, hit it, and, uh, that kinda thing, so that was and, like, the bathroom stuff, like, my daughter, I always joke around about, like, she would turn the faucet on. I don't know if anybody taught her how to do that, but when she went in the bathroom, she didn't want anybody to hear her tinkle, so she'd turn the faucet on when she tinkled. And my son, it was completely different. He'd make a big deal out like, he'd bust the door open and be like, "I gotta go pee," and the whole world knew, and so, big difference. I always joke around in schools about how like one time one of my daughters, was sitting on my lap and she put her finger on my nose like that. And I was like, I could smell it and it smelled like butt, right? I said, "Hey, why do your fingers smell?" And she thought she was in trouble, so she started getting a little, just crying. She goes, "I don't know." And she was like 5, right? So I go, "Did you have your fingers in your bum?" And she's like, "Yes." Like, she cried. And so then I go, "Why?" She goes, "I had a wedgie." And I'm like, "Oh my god." Like, and, that's the difference too. Like, my son, he never picked a wedgie. Like, he wouldn't touch anything down there. If he had a wedgie, he would grind, you know what I mean? And then my daughters, they could be in church and they'd be picking wedgies. I don't understand that, how guys and girls are different like that. Like, girls will pick a wedgie no matter where they're at. Guys don't, so I don't know. You didn't raise any girls, but what's your, were they smelly? What was
No, I didn't. But I remember I was hanging out with a buddy of mine, and we were at the park. Our families were at the park, and they had kids about my age, my son's age, my boys' ages, and so we were sitting at the park, and there was a great big loop there, like a walkway loop, and they had their skateboards out, their roller skates, whatever it was, just the tiny little things, and my son came around the corner on his bike and he wiped out right in front of me and just, it was bad. And and my buddy immediately went like this and he was waiting and I scraped him off. He cried a little bit and then I, hugged him and talked to him, encouraged him, and then he just went off. And my friend was just in awe. Like he said, "You know what just happened?" I'm like, "What?" He fell. He said, "Listen, if my daughter would have done that, it would have ruined the rest of the day. She would have cried for hours and hours, and your son just wiped it off and kind of going back to the crowbar incident, And I know we all, but that was kind of how it was with me. I loved raising my boys, though. I loved every level of their development, every age. People kept talking about, I wish I could go back to this, wish I could go back to that year, but I loved every year. It was really fun. In fact, honestly, I would love to I don't wanna have another kid, but I wouldn't mind going back and reliving that again. I mean, I love those days with my boys. It was a blast raising boys, but I gave my boys permission to be boys, right? To be who they were. And none of my boys were athletes. They were all musicians. And all my friends are posting their stuff online about all their kids' athletic acumen, prowess, whatever. And I didn't really have much to show there, but my boys were incredible
Good
musicians.
drummers. They're really
Yeah,
good drummers.
yeah.
All of them, right?
And
All 3 of them.
yep, all 3 of them. 2 of them are professional, drummers, and 1 is on his way there, so they're really good. I'm very proud of my boys.
That's awesome. That's really cool. I so what's funny is my daughters were like real okay, so I'm divorced, but my wife who raised, who basically was the mom for my 4 kids. She went through this little thing where we're eating healthy, right? Just we're like almost like bird food. It was like she got on this kind of kick, and so so the whole family had to do it, So we're all eating like like birds, right? So one day she comes over to me and she's upset and she said, Keegan, my son, um, she had caught him stealing food, right? Sneaking it down to his room. So she wanted me to discipline him, and so I go I go down there and I go, "What's going on?" So he had some Twinkies, I don't know, he had something that he smuggled in, and so I I s I go, you can't do that," and he just started bawling, right? He goes, "Dad, I'm so," he goes, "I just ate, and I'm so hungry." Like, so I said, "Alright, hold on." So I said, "Meet me by the car in, like, 10 minutes." So
So cute.
so he sneaks out the back door and he goes into my car and we take I told my wife I got to go to church. I worked at the church. And so he sneaks in and we went over to Burger King. We both got like Whoppers, just mowed down. It was so funny. He's like, I'm so hungry. Because we would eat. I was trying to be nice, like, but I would I could leave the house and go eat and
Right.
I had stuff at church and I always found ways to eat. But those poor kids, I had to eat, and then she finally got off that kick. But and that was so funny because he was a grown boy. He was like 12 years old. He needed to eat.
Yeah.
So
Right. Right. And the funny thing is how you kinda sneak him contraband. You sneak him out. Don't even tell her, "Hey, our boy is hungry." You just take him to
no,
Burger
'cause it
King.
wasn't gonna do anything. Yeah, she was on her little campaign. So,
Oh,
and then
man.
another time we used to when we lived in Rockford for a while. He was 8th, I think it was 6th or 7th grade, something like that. There was a there was a track, a go-kart track near our house, and it was going out of business, but they hadn't gone out of business yet. So they were the teenage grandkids of the people that owned it were running it, which means it was chaos, right? So it was like $2 for like 20 minutes, right? It was like ridiculous. It was cheap money and they took the governors off the go-karts. So they
Yes.
went incredibly fast, and there was no one there to monitor it. It was because they would get the kids that were supposed to be, working would get if people came, they'd get on the go-karts too. And they knew the faster ones, and we kinda got to know the faster ones. So I think my car was 15. I always got 15 because it was super fast, and you could hit each other. And it had the metal rails around it, and you could just wipe each other out. And oh my god, Keegan and I would just take off and go over there constantly until they finally closed the place down. But it's a memory that we have, of just, remember the go-karts? There was
Mhm.
we killed each other. I mean, it was like spinning each other out and like just craziness. It was fun.
That's the
It
whole
was a good
point,
time.
especially I don't know, with my boys, that was the whole point of but I wait when the governors are on, I mean, you're just driving around. It's like the ride at Disneyland. I mean, the carts, they just bang against that middle thing and that's not fun, the fun is when you get to go out there and cruise around and yeah, that's how the go-kart should be, and you should be able to pass. That's the other thing I hate too, when they don't allow you to pass or they don't allow you to bump the other car. Well,
Oh, yeah.
how else you supposed to
Oh,
get around them, you know?
right,
Yeah.
right. And I think that's, there's a limit. You gotta be careful. You don't wanna be too nuts. But
Right.
we've gotten so tough on boys to not take risks and do things like that, that I think it takes away from adventure, right?
Yeah.
Like part of it is life is adventure. I remember, we talked about this the first podcast, but I remember you I left my house at 10 in the morning and didn't come back until the streetlights came on. and you just found stuff to do. I had a bike, I had a baseball bat, I had a glove, and you just go, right? And you find your friends, you go to some field, you play some baseball, then you go down the pond, and we lived near the ocean, so there was a bridge near our house that we'd jump off all the time and swim in the ocean, and there was Whitman's Pond, and we'd go down to Whitman's Pond, and there was Nantasket Beach. This is some little advertisement thing, uh, but that was near my house. We rode our bikes over to the beach and, um, just had a blast. And I don't know, it's like now we're so, and I understand we have to be careful not to let kids out of our sight because we got so many weirdos around, um, all that kind of I get that, but man, I get disappointed sometimes because I remember how much I learned about life and how much, um, you just got resilient because you had to deal with certain things that
Yeah.
you told your parents or you didn't tell your parents. I mean, half the stuff I tell my mom stuff now that I did back when I was a kid, and she's like, "When?" She's like, "I never knew that." I'm like, "'Cause we
Right.
didn't tell you. We just dealt with it, you
That
know?"
was growing up in the '70s. It's a different day now.
Yeah.
It's not you can't I don't know that necessarily know the answer to that, but there is something about going out and discovering and playing with dirt and rocks and, and you got into trouble because you were trying things. I got lucky because I read something when my kids were younger, and, I mean, I could have really tried to at one point, I wanted my boys to really get into sports, and I signed up my one of my sons for soccer, and all my sons actually played soccer, and that's what you do with your kids, you get them in sports, and I think it's a good idea to let them go out there and run around and stuff like that, but, dude, everyone was playing soccer, and my son is in the middle of the soccer field picking grass and looking at grass, just picking all these kids are running.
That's because he's your son.
You're exactly right. After the game, I said, "Son, you can't pick grass while the game is going on." I said, "You gotta go chase the ball. You gotta go play your position. You gotta." So the next game, I was really, the next week, I made sure he caught that. So then he had this thing where the next game starts and all of a sudden I'm looking around and I hear this. "Eek, eek, eek, eek." I'm like, what is that? And I see my son, he's got these little pinchers out. He made this thing called a giant Eric. It was like this monster. And he would like, "Eek, eek," and he was chasing this girl all around. He wasn't chasing the ball. Wherever the girl went, he would just, "Eek, eek." So this girl was really good. She's got the ball and he like, "Eek, eek, eek." But I read something and I had learned something about letting your kids be who they uniquely are, you
Yeah.
know? And even schools, I mean, there's a lot of guys, males that don't do well in school. There's a lot of people that don't do well in school because they're not made to sit still. They need to learn by getting up and exploring and all that type stuff, right? And I remember I read something. I was so glad that I came across it, but it talked about this guy was telling a story about how he and his wife were in the backyard and they had a pool or a trampoline or something like that. And they look up on the roof and their son had just climbed out of his window on the roof and he was looking at the pool getting ready to jump in. Well, the mom freaks out. She's yelling, "No, no," and then he looked at his dad and his dad just gave him a nod. And she's like, "What are you doing? You can't let him jump off the roof." And he said, "Babe," he looked up to his son and he said, "Son, are you gonna jump off that roof? Whether if we weren't here, would you jump off that roof?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, then go ahead." Then he looked at his wife and said, "Babe, I would rather have him jump off the roof while we're here than wait till we're not here because we told him he couldn't do it."
Right.
And that wildness that a lot of our kids have, and some kids don't have it as much, but I think all of us have a little bit in us. We just are it's squeezed out of us a lot of time. We're told this is how we're supposed to parent, and parenting isn't easy, man. It's not. We don't know. We're kids having kids. There's books on parenting, but you know what I'm saying? It's like there is, but there isn't books on parenting. I mean, like, what do you do? You're not. You're trying to figure it out as you go.
Yeah, I mean, the balance, it is a balance of whether it's a guy or a girl you're raising is, do you let them go? Do you let them kind of figure it out on their own? Or are you micromanaging everything? And, I don't believe in micromanaging. I don't believe that it was really safe the way we were raised either. Like, because there were kids did disappear. I mean, that's not a lie. I mean,
Can we
there
call this
was
episode the crowbar?
I then so I guess that's what I would say is that find that balance. Like, you wanna give your kids agency, like, you give them the ability to figure out their life, and I did write a parenting book called, Talking to Brick Walls, and one of my favorite chapter in that book actually is, the privilege of process. Giving kids the privilege of processing their own life and their own decisions with your supervision. Like, I would say that the privilege of process when I was growing up was not a it wasn't the privilege of, like, there was no supervision over me. They just let us go, right? That I don't believe in that either. But I do believe that sometimes we overly analyze things and overly parent, and it's not good for the kid, because if you take care of all their barriers, and you take all away all their speed bumps, well, you're not gonna be there when they're 19, 20 in their college, or when they're married, and, you gotta teach them agency. You gotta teach them how to survive, uh, in the real world. My son got into a fight one day. Well, he called me and he said, "Dad, some kids are gonna jump me." And, instead of me saying, "Okay, I'll come pick you up and take you out of that situation," I said, "What happened?" And he told me, he said there was some things that he did that prompted it, prompted the conflict, not the fight, but the conflict. And so I said, "Yeah, they're not gonna stop until you fight them." So me and you might have a problem with this, those of you watching this, but this is what I did. I said, "All right, I'll pick you up, and we're supposed to meet them at this park." So I drove my son to the park, and all I did, I brought a friend with me that was kind of this tougher kid, was younger, and, he was a kid that I was mentoring, and I called him up, I go, "Hey, Keegan's gonna get in a fight, you wanna go?" He's like, "Yeah." So he came with me, and we just sat on the hill, and I just said this, there was a bunch of guys that were about to fight my son, and I said, "You can all fight him, every single one of you, that's fine, one at a time." I said, "If you jump in and it's 2 on 1, he's coming in." And so nobody moved, they just one kid fought him. And I said to Keegan, I said, "Listen," because Keegan wrestled, and I go, "Every fight's gonna get into wrestling, it always does." So I said, "Double leg takedown, get on top of the kid and smack him, and it'll be over." You know? So what happened was, that's exactly what happened. Keegan double legged him, the kid got down, but Keegan's nice, so instead of punching him in the face, he slapped him. I would have belted him, but
You would've, I
knocked
know
his
you
nose
would've.
right off his face. But but it settled it. The kid was like, "Oh," he got startled because they didn't wanna fight, they just wanted to be tough, and I knew that if we hadn't just got it over with, they were just gonna keep harassing him all year. Well, it was over, it was done, and so I know I'm gonna get pushback on this. There's gonna be some parents who'll be like, You can't teach your kids to fight," and yeah, okay, I get it, and I speak in school, so I know what I'm supposed to say, but for my own son, it worked, and so, and it was a good lesson for him, because he realized some things that he probably could have done that led up to it, that probably, he could have done a little bit different. It might not have gone to that point, but whatever. I mean, we processed it together though. Like, we kind of talked it over, and that was the thing to do. And it ended up being a good thing for him. So,
Yeah, and
uh,
I read your book, and it's a very good book, and, if you got it there, show us. Maybe you could put in the show notes a link to get that book too. If you
yeah,
got a
it's a good book.
teenager if you got a teenager, man, I would highly recommend reading that, and 2 things. Number 1, I believe that maybe the reason why we have more helicopter parents or micromanaging parents, we didn't have that in the '70s, and I think everything shifted. I think the next generation came up and said, "My parents didn't even know where I was all day long," and then the pendulum of the grandfather clock, like we talked about in the first episode, we took it all the way to the other side, and then we controlled too much, and I think the balance is somewhere in the middle, and that balance is allowing them the privilege to process, and I think it's important that we allow our kids to do that. And I think the whole thing in raising kids is, and you talk about this in your book eloquently, by the way, your book is such an easy read and it's so inspiring. And anyway, you have to listen to your child. I mean, in raising kids, it's not easy. You have to listen to your child as well. That doesn't mean you do everything your child asks you to do or complains about you doing it. And if you do, then that's how brats get raised. Um, Not always, but you have to listen to your child and you have to communicate with your child. If there's no communication, then the relationship is really, where does it go from there? I mean, I heard a quote once that said, you can judge for yourself whether you guys like it or not that are listening. But no relationship is better than its communication. Communication is very vital, and your children are important just as they are. You're
Yeah.
important just as you are, and you've got to be. General Patton said, "If everyone is thinking alike, then someone isn't thinking," because we were all created uniquely.
Yeah. Kids don't get frustrated because they don't get their way. Kids get frustrated because they don't get heard.
Yeah,
So even if you completely hear them and then you make a decision that's based not, like something they don't like or maybe they don't agree with, but you've completely heard them, that's that's okay because you as a parent, you do have to make decisions sometimes and they're not gonna like. But
yeah,
what I think frustrates a kid is when you're not even listening, you don't hear my side, right? I've had to make decisions with my kids that they didn't like, but I listened to them, I heard it out, I'm like, "What's your rationale? What do you think?" "All right, well, here's" and then explain, "Here's why I'm going against this decision right now because this, and if and I'm the bottom line is I'm gonna make the decision, but I heard you, I hear you." And the fact that I heard them softened the blow a little bit, and I think
yeah,
that's it's the parent that just kinda makes the decision because it's my way or the highway and blows the kid out of the water, you're gonna get a rebel. That kid's
yeah.
gonna find a way
You're
to
gonna
do
pay
it
a
on his
price down the
own.
road. Yeah,
Right. So,
yeah,
well, Steve, it's been a good podcast, raising
sure
boys,
has.
raising girls, getting hit by crowbars. Woo!
It's kind of the
I have a
same
hockey
thing.
game
It's
tonight. I'm supposed to play hockey tonight. My wife doesn't want me to because she thinks I might have got a concussion. I don't think it really hurt me that bad. I'm just kidding. Well,
Hey, for everyone
everybody,
that's watching, listening, subscribing, boy, we really appreciate it. Help us get this message of happy, of fun, of life out there. There's so much negative stuff out there online. That's kind of one of the reasons why we're doing this. So thanks you for listening to Two Old White Men, whether you agree
two
with
old
everything
white
we say or
men.
not.
Exactly. All right, guys, have a good week.
Have a
Peace
great one.
out.